So we are going to be talking about, quality over quantity and, how to make an effective open source contribution, prioritizing quality over quantity. We've had amazing talks from growing communities, and also how to attract contributors to your project. And we had an amazing talk as well from DB that talked about open source for everyone and not just code, which was really very interactive. So I'm going to be sharing, how to make quality contributions, right? How to prioritize quality over quantity in contributing to open source. So yeah, aside being the host or the moderator for this track, I'm an open source advocate. I'm also a technical writer and a GitHub star. So that's about me. Sorry, I think I can move forward. Why is that? I'm trying to move my slide, but it seems so let me stop share. It seems I shared only one tab. So give me a second, let me share again and share my whole Chrome. I wonder why that is happening, because I think I shared my whole Google Chrome. So give me a second, let me resolve that. Slideshow. Okay, cool. Sorry. So cool. So yeah, so we had I really enjoyed DB's talk, by the way. If you were here, DB talked about open source for everyone, and she highlighted non-code contributions, right? So let's do a starter, right? What's open source? If you know that already, and if you do not know that already, what's an open source project, or what classifies an open source project? So yeah, so since these are the keywords, the project or the software, the design pattern or the code base is accessible. You can see it. You can contribute to it, make edits. You can redistribute it as your own. You can attend to bugs, fix bugs. You can make alterations and also enhance that project. So that's what classifies, an open source project. So these are the keywords that, classify what an open source project or a software is. And, I'm going to be referencing DB a lot because that was like an amazing talk. So yeah, and then there are like non-code projects as well. So it must not be, that's why I put like design pattern there as well, because it must not be about code. It can be documentation, it can be design files. So whatever it is that the pattern or how it was made, it's transparent, it's accessible, you can make alterations, redistribute it freely and all that stuff. So that's what classifies an open source project. So I really do not know. Okay, so now let's move on to like some myths, and so I'm going to be comparing the two of them, right? I'll say a myth and then I'll say the truth, right? So let's look at these misconceptions when people try to contribute to open source. So first is not first, not like anyone takes like the lead, but one thing you find is people usually say you can't contribute to open source, as a beginner, right? You just started learning, you just got into tech, right? And you want to contribute to open source. So by the way, if you say anything on the chat, aside that I was moderator, I won't be able to see it. So and then it's a webinar and I can't hear anybody. So I'm going to switch in between. I'm checking chat if I'm audible. Right. So so there are myths like you can't contribute, or should anyone be my moderator, my assistant moderator, but that's fine. So I'll just go ahead. So there's a myth that you can't contribute to open source as a beginner, and that's not true, right? There are folks that started open source contributions from when they were beginners. Example, me, right? I was 3 months into code and I started contributing to open source. I barely knew anything about code then, but I was able to make valuable contributions, which is why I'm giving this talk today about contributing I'm trying to remove this misconception that beginners, which is the truth here, that beginners can and they should contribute to open source, right? It's the truth that you can contribute at whatever stage you are. So it does not, you must not be senior, have so many years of experience in tech. You must not, there's no, that standard is not there. So you can start anytime you want to. And there are also non like DB referenced DB in her talk. She also talked about non-code contribution. So even folks that are not in tech, they still have a place to contribute to open source, right? So everybody has a place here. So I don't know why this is happening. I can't move out. Okay. I can't really move out of my slide, and I don't know why that's happening. I'm going to share again. I'm so sorry. Okay, so yeah, so that's one of the myths. Another one is there's also this misconception that you must know how to code, like what I said earlier, right? You must know how to code to be an open source contributor. That's not true. People that, non-software developers are welcome to contribute to open source. Everybody is welcome to make a contribution. Initially, when I started contributing to open source, I did some code contributions. Well, I did some before I started doing documentation and, hosting something like I'm doing here, contributing via, speaking and all other stuff. So non-code contributions are welcome in open source. So I always have to stop share before this thing works. So I'm so sorry. I always have to stop share before it works. Let me just, I'm going to present my slide like this, so it's better. So I don't have to always do that every time. So yeah, so that's one thing. You must not be a developer to contribute to open source. Another myth is it doesn't really matter what you do, right? Like just keep putting in contributions. Just when you join the community, just keep contributing. Right. And that's not true, right? Which is like the focus of this talk, right? Talking about quality and, not just how many contributions you make when you join the community. Another thing is contributing to anything. You need to, personally, when I started, I chose projects that first were I was coding in Python. I'm a Python developer as well. So I was coding in Python then. So I chose projects that, were Python related, right? I wouldn't be able to contribute something JavaScript. And I also chose projects that aligned with my passion, right? That aligned with my interest, my values. So contributing, that's also something that, you should take note of, right? You necessarily do not have to contribute to everything, right? So the next thing, which aligns with the other thing I said, right? It's not about, if you use GitHub, you should know about the green graph. There's this graph that shows like your contributions that you make. There's a graph that, depicts that. So you do not need, those green squares on GitHub. You do not need a very fancy chart to contribute to, open source or be qualified as an open source contributor. It must not be on GitHub. There are other ways to contribute to open source and not on GitHub. Other people use GitLab as well. Then it must not be on GitHub. There are different ways to contribute to open source. So you do not need green squares on GitHub to, be a qualified open source contributor, right? Other contributions are valid. I think if you check my GitHub graph, it's like so empty, but then I have still been making contributions, but not on GitHub. So that's one myth or misconception I want you to take away. So why should you contribute to open source? A whole lot of the speakers even have talked about this, and I agree with them. It improves, your technical skill. You get to learn better. You get to collaborate. You are able to basically turn your little idea, with collaboration. You get to connect with other folks. Improve on your idea and take your idea from just one little thought in your head and make it a project that everyone depends on, or so many companies depend on. There's also like transparency. You get, when you build in the open, you get other folks to look at your work, and sometimes they are able to like spot inconsistencies or bugs that naturally you would have not been able to fix yourself, right? You get that that there's that collaborative nature, and you also help others learn, right? During this talk, during this session that we've had today, we've had like insightful things. I've learned a lot myself, and everyone that attended each of the sessions have learned a lot, and these are our speakers are helping us learn, right? So you can help others learn through your contributions, through being even in communities. There are some communities that provide like mentorship programs where you can mentor others that are coming up as well. So it's an avenue to help you learn and also help others learn. So these are like some of the reasons why you should contribute to open source, and which it's very valid. So down to how do you make quality contributions in open source, right? Not looking at quantity, not looking at how many green squares you have, or when you join the community, the number of pull requests you send, or the number of contributions or ideas you bring into the community. How do you make it quality? How do you prioritize quality over that quantity? So one thing you should do, right, when you find the first thing you should do rather is picking out projects that aligns with what you do, right? So for example, I'm a Python developer and I know I want to contribute via code, right? Everybody necessarily do not have to contribute via code. And say, for example, I'm using myself as an example, as a use case here. I am a Python developer and I want to contribute via code, right? I know how, so I'm going to pause for a minute and check. If you can hear me, please wait, thumbs up. So okay, I think there's thumbs up. So I think y'all can hear me. So yeah, so you pick, so for example, me as the use case, I'm a Python developer and I want to contribute via code. I've come to that decision that my open source contributions are going to be code, right? So I have to go out looking for a project, Python project, or some other frameworks that are related to Python that aligns with what I do. Because if I join a project that is mainly like based on JavaScript, and I have said yes, I want to contribute via code, right? That's what I have defined for myself, right? I want to contribute on the code side of things. It's going to be hard for me to make a contribution, right? Because that's not my stack. I do Python and I don't know, except you are willing to start with the programming language that project is based on, and that's also fine. Next thing is joining the community, and disclaimer here, it's not it's not really necessary for you to join. If you want to stay out of the community, that's fine. There are some persons that give back to the community via open source, and they do that like during their weekends. They don't want to be part of the community. They just search for projects and they make contributions, and that's it, and that's fine. But joining the community, if you know you want to like gain grounds and make impact in that project, joining the community is one way you can do that. And when you join the community, you should choose an area that you focus on. So let me use a use case again as another example. So I'm the use case here. So when I started contributing to open source, I had noticed like a problem with my getting in was quite frustrating, and I would struggle so much to make contributions, which I found out that for beginners like me, then it was also hard for them to participate in open source, or for them to, join a project. So I said, okay, these communities that I am part of, I was going to smoothing onboarding process, like for beginners in there, like people that want to start with the project. So that was like the focus area I centered on, right? Smoothing onboarding process within these communities or this project rather that I contribute to rather. So that's what I have been focusing on for the past 2 years. I've been like trying to improve onboarding process for newcomers, a whole lot of things, documentation as well. So choosing an area to focus on will help you. It helps you know, it helps you make more impact. It helps you streamline your ideas. It helps you give quality to that project, right? So being focused on one area. So it might not be for beginners. It might be for like maybe documentation. It might be writing clear code or writing clean code, right? Doing a whole lot of things, or focused on the marketing side of the project. There are so many things. So it depends on it goes back to the first point, what aligns with you, right? So that's another thing. And something else is being vocal, right? And asking questions. When you join the community, you know what they want because you're new to that project, and you need to gain ground before even you make a contribution most of the time. So try to be vocal, and be vocal like for communities, for projects that have communities. They usually have meetups, they usually have weekly things, and depending on the project. So during those projects, and it might not be voicing out, it can be through chat, using chat option to air your views. That's being vocal as well. You can ask questions, try to ask questions where you feel lost, where because there are people that, depending on, there are people that are there to help you out, know where to focus on or know where they need help with. So that also helps. Also, helping others is one way to make quality. Like people come into an open source project frequently. There's always a newcomer somewhere that is lost. There's always a newcomer somewhere that doesn't know what to do. So helping others learn and contribute, even making their first pull request helps you make quality contributions, because there are some times where I would help someone, get on the Zoom with them, try to troubleshoot an issue. Maybe they're trying to set up the project and it's frustrating them. And if it's someone that is very new to Git, it's like 2 times till now Git still kicks my ass. But then if someone that is new to Git, they're definitely going to have a whole lot of issues. So imagine getting on a call with that person or that newcomer and just solving their issue. It feels like magic to them. Honestly, trust me, I've been there. It feels like magic. So helping others learn and contribute, that's quality, right? Because you're increasing the numbers of people in the community. So another thing, accepting feedback, which can be tough, right? Because especially when you're new to the project, accepting feedback can be tough. Imagine sending a pull request and someone is telling you, okay, this does not really work, or maybe you send the pull request and it's not passing the test. So sometimes, most of the time, right, when you send a pull request, a senior contributor has to review your code or your contribution and make some changes, ask you to make some changes. So accepting feedback, with ask questions, goes back to saying ask questions when feedback is given. Ask questions on how you can improve, accept them, and try to implement them as possible. So that's like some good tips and best practices on how you can make good open source contributions. So the thing here is, okay, what's like the balance, right? Yes, it's great to have like just disclaimer is that it's not bad to have so many contributions, right? But you should look at quality first, right? And these things work hand in hand. When you look at quality over time, your contributions increase, right? You can be doing a whole lot of things, right? And before you know it, you have made very good impact, and then you look back and you see that you've been doing a whole lot of things. So it goes hand in hand. But this talk is more about telling you to prioritize quality, and then quantity comes along. So whatever community you join, if you're a new contributor, if you have not made your own contribution yet whatsoever, you should always think about these things, looking at what's important part with these tips I have outlined, what important part of the projects you can focus on, how to help others as you learn as well. So you should take note of all these things. And that's pretty much all I have for you today. It was a very short